Well, I think we'll get started. So for the benefit of the group, I'm Tom Costabile. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I have the pleasure and the honor of serving as ASME's Executive Director and CEO. I'd like to start by thanking all of you for joining us on this second day of ASME's Public Policy Impact event for 2021. We are continuing our discussions today on technology policy dialogue underway in Washington. With ASME's long history in standards and certification, technology innovation has always been at the heart of our work. As engineers, we appreciate the critical role that the Department of Energy plays in supporting research and development across the energy technology community. Whether it's modeling, simulation, novel materials, advanced manufacturing, or renewable energy, the Department of Energy is a key partner of every part of the engineering community. We're thrilled today and honored to have Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm join us. We'll welcome the Secretary and thank us for joining us in such a critical time in the administration. Before we turn it over to Secretary Granholm, I'd like to provide a brief introduction for our audience, and then we'll move directly into remarks. So Secretary Granholm was sworn in as the 16th Secretary of Energy in late February. She is the second woman to lead the U.S. Department of Energy, and prior to that, she was the first woman elected to the governor of Michigan. She served 2 terms as governor, where she successfully led efforts to diversify the state's economy, strengthen its auto industry and manufacturing sector, and add emerging sectors such as clean energy to Michigan's economic portfolio. She was very successful. Not only does Michigan now produce 1/3 of all of North America's electric vehicles, but it's also one of the top 5 states for clean energy patents. Secretary Granholm is now charged with leading the Department of Energy in helping America achieve President Biden's goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2050, and by advancing cutting clean energy technology innovation. The administration has set an ambitious goal to cut carbon emissions in the power sector by 2035, cut solar costs by more than half in the next decade, and add 30 gigawatts of offshore wind capacity by 2030. For me, it's an exciting time, and yes, it is an exciting time, and very pleased that the Department of Energy is leading the way. So with that, Secretary Granholm, good afternoon, and thank you again for joining us today.
Great, thank you so much, Tom, and good afternoon or morning or evening, depending on where you are, to everybody who's here. It's so great to be with you all, and I would say not a day too soon, because I'll level with you. You know, we got our work cut out for us. As you know, the international community is embracing the need for action to address climate change. All over the world, countries are plotting clean energy transitions, and as a result, the demand for those technologies is set to skyrocket. There was a study that was out in, I think it was January of this year, that assessed what the demand was going to look like globally. And by the end of this decade, clean energy technology is going to balloon into, at a minimum, a $23 trillion market, a $23 trillion opportunity. So you better believe our economic rivals, other countries, are racing to stake their claim in this new market. And whoever comes out on top is going to have the inside track on, frankly, leading the global economy through the 21st century. So we in America, we cannot afford to be stuck in neutral. We got to go, go, go. And that's why the president has committed the country to researching and designing and building and deploying, especially our way to America's clean energy future. So the president's laid out these very ambitious goals to guide our efforts. Tom mentioned them. The first up is a 50 to 52% reduction in our emissions by the end of this decade, so by 2030. The second is this 100% clean electricity by 2035. And the third, the net zero carbon emissions by 2050. So it's going to require the full force of the federal government. It's going to require science and innovation at a scale the world has never seen before. It's going to require every ounce of talent and grit and ingenuity that the country has to offer, especially folks like you, especially the folks who are engineering our future, the folks who are in science, engineering, math, technology fields. If we marshal the full potential of American society, we really do believe we can win this race, but it is not going to be easy. I've got this whiteboard right next to me in my office, and I keep a tally of how many guaranteed days we have left in this administration's term. And if you don't count holidays and weekends, today is 918 guaranteed days to make this massive shift. So the clock is ticking and we have been busy. So just to let you know, since January 20th, the Department of Energy has set nearly $1.5 billion in motion with grants and awards and funding opportunities for clean energy R&D and development projects and deployment projects. So the president's 2022 budget proposal paves the way, and it will be coming out on Friday. It paves the way for us to do so much more with investments that are going to put us on a path to quadruple clean energy research across the government in 4 years and deploy hundreds of gigawatts of clean and cheap and abundant power. But in order to move at the scale and speed that we need to meet these decarbonization goals, we absolutely need one other thing, which is President Biden's American Jobs Plan. And I know you probably have talked about it maybe yesterday with some of the representatives you've heard from. Honestly, this plan is going to make historic, once in a generation investments to modernize our nation's clean energy infrastructure and to accelerate our work on the clean energy technologies that I know are important to all of you, certainly important to us here at DOE. That plan, the American Jobs Plan, is going to put hundreds of billions of dollars toward deploying the technologies that we already have, like wind and solar, as well as researching and developing new groundbreaking technologies like, offshore wind and carbon capture and advanced nuclear and utility scale storage and hydrogen. So $100 billion alone is going to go toward modernizing the grid. So we obviously need to add capacity to our grid and we need to make it more resilient. So the renewables that we are going to add are going to require that we open up transmission lines and add them and incentivize more high voltage transmission, and as well as bolstering security against physical and cyber threats alike. What's more, in that American Jobs Plan, there is a $180 billion commitment to reestablishing America as a global leader in research and development, with a flood of investment for our national labs and research institutions and universities across the nation to hit these critical breakthroughs in clean energy technology, as well as investments to build up a STEM workforce that's as skilled and diverse and inclusive as possible. And that's so important because you all know better than anyone that these technologies don't just appear out of thin air. We're going to need thousands upon thousands of scientists and engineers to bring them to life with their, all of them with unique perspectives in the lab and in the field, and asking questions and making observations and, identifying needs that are too often overlooked, because that's how we create the best solutions for our people, having perspectives, 360-degree perspectives around the table. So the point is, the American Jobs Plan is going to move mountains. And if we can get it done, we will achieve so much more than just these decarbonization goals. We are going to spark an economic revolution by putting millions and millions of Americans to work in careers, in good paying jobs. And we'll launch communities in every pocket of the country, especially those that have gone unseen for far too long. We're going to launch them into a hopefully cleaner and healthier and definitely more prosperous future. So we need your help. We need everybody's help getting this over the finish line. If you like the sound of investing in America, if you like the sound of investing in our research and development and deployment of these technologies, I urge you to stand up and to speak out, to go on social media, to encourage your leaders, your members of Congress to support this, because you all know it's going to take, a lot to achieve our net zero ambitions, and your voice would go a long way, your leaders, toward landing this bill on the president's desk. So we've got a lot of work cut out for us. There's no time to waste, but I think our better future, our more competitive future, our more prosperous future is within reach. And if we work on it together, I know we can seize it. So thank you so much for allowing me to join you.
Oh, Secretary, thank you. It's purely a pleasure. I fully appreciate what you said, and I fully agree with you that we need to stand shoulder to shoulder. I know you have a limited amount of time today, and we appreciate that. We've got one or two quick questions for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
The first one comes from, and again, this is a little bit near and dear to my heart because I started out in the nuclear power industry way back in the early 70s. So according to the EIA, a record 5 nuclear power plants are set to retire this year. And the U.S. generation from nuclear is predicted to fall from about 19% to 11% by 2050. Could you speak to DOE's work on advancing nuclear technologies like small modular reactors and how nuclear power fits into our clean energy future strategy?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for the question. It absolutely does. Both attempting to keep those 5 that are slated to retire online, as well as adding new and advanced reactors, et cetera, to our research, development, and deployment portfolio. So we're exploring every option that can get us to this net zero carbon emissions, 100% clean electricity by 2035. Nuclear has to be a critical part of that decarbonization option. You've alluded to this, but nuclear provides more than 55% of the US's clean energy now. That's just a massive number. And nearly, I think, 30% of the world's clean energy. And it avoids more carbon emissions than all other clean energy sources combined in the US. So, on the retirements, if one wants to preserve the existing fleet, everybody should be in favor of the clean energy standard in the American Jobs Plan, because that would more or less fix the nuclear retirement problem all on its own. Nuclear energy being a key portion of that demand side strategy, the demand pull for clean energy, zero carbon emission technologies. So it's another reason why we're so keen on ensuring that part of the bills, that is in the bill that lands on the president's desk. But, as you started to mention, what's next, right? Beyond our existing fleet, we are working with industry and our national labs to deploy these advanced nuclear technologies, including advanced large reactors and small reactors. So by the end of the decade, and we are on track to demonstrate 2 advanced nuclear reactors in the next 5 to 7 years. And one of our goals is to make this technology both cleaner and safer. And another one is finding long-term disposal solution for nuclear waste clearly. So we're excited about that. The American Jobs Plan has key investments in that, including a $15 billion investment in climate research and development demonstration projects that absolutely include advanced nuclear.
Thank you for that. That's comforting to hear. This next question focuses on smart manufacturing technology. So the DOE is developing a new national plan for smart manufacturing technology that promotes energy efficiency in manufacturing, as well as programs that would provide technical assistance to promote the commercial application of emission reduction technologies. Could you provide us with some insight into DOE's work here?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Please.
Sorry, I'm so excited about it. I'm cutting you off at the pass.
Never worry.
The manufacturing side, I'm just so passionate about it, having been governor of Michigan, which of course is a manufacturing state at its heart. And the industrial sector, currently contributes, many of you all know this, 1/4 of the nation's greenhouse gas emissions. And it's such a critical part of the economy, which we need to grow, by the way, and not watch just shrink. And we need it to manufacture these clean energy and carbon reducing technologies. So we need to figure out a way to decarbonize industrial processes. And this administration is really committed to solving that, which is a thorny challenge, right? So the Energy Act has been guiding our work in many, many ways that was passed. And, for example, the American Jobs Plan lays out $15 billion, as I mentioned, for demonstration projects, $35 billion for research and development in critical decarbonization technologies, which will help us open the doors to broad commercialization. And those are derived from a list of core technologies that are laid out in that Energy Act, including ones that target emission reduction like carbon capture. And in the meantime, DOE is using the resources we can that we already have to bring to bear on research and development and deployment and demonstration, that full suite of technologies that we'll need to decarbonize the industrial sector. We're investing in CCUS and methane reduction technologies. We are exploring what's possible with electrification and switching to hydrogen and other fuels. And meanwhile, we have our Clean Energy Smart Manufacturing Innovation Institute. That's a mouthful, I know, but it's working on advanced sensors and controls and platforms and models that those kind of technologies are going to need. So we're looking at it from all angles. We're also preparing this industrial decarbonization roadmap that's going to lay out short and medium and long-term solutions for dramatic emission reductions. And I know our advanced manufacturing office would love to consult with standards and certification leaders in crafting that agenda, because it's so important and we want to get it. We want to get it through the pipe. So we're also working, by the way, with our international counterparts to build up the global market for decarbonized steel and cement and chemicals. And at the G7 last week, we agreed to this industrialized decarbonization agenda, which is going to harmonize policies across the G7 on matters like procurement, so that we can increase demand for these decarbonized goods, and we hope will attract greater interest in the technologies and processes that produce them. So importantly, we just see these technologies as a pathway to lifting up particularly energy communities who are on the edge of the clean energy transition. They require many of the same kinds of skills, by the way, that the workers who have powered our country for the last century already have in spades. It's an exciting time.
Great. Well, thank you, Secretary. Again, we have about 100 ASME members meeting with the legislatures virtually tomorrow on Capitol Hill. So you'll hear this theme again. I know your time is committed. I very much appreciate you spending a few moments with us. We'd love to do this again. And again, you've got our support as a society. I know all of my fellow nuclear engineers have blown up the chat with questions about nuclear power. So it's comforting to hear. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. You bet.